Almost everyone is talking about AI, with artificial intelligence stocks soaring to new greed levels that feel like the dot-com boom, and people using AI in their businesses to make life much easier. But there's a dystopia that people are also talking about that AI could create. And today we're going to talk about how to protect yourself from the darker side of AI. In addition to all the great uses for AI in improving your business, making your life easier, I've been reading in the news about certain kind of dystopian events that could be created through artificial intelligence. Anything from, crushing infrastructure to unleashing new diseases through things like people hacking, through AI. And my thought of that is it's going to be more likely to happen in places like Los Angeles and London than Lima and Larnaca. And so what we always talk about here at Nomad Capitalist is where you live, where your money lives, where your business lives is important. Just staying in a place that is the target of everybody may open up new threats. It's a good idea to have a second residence, a second home, a second passport, a place to go that's a little bit off the radar. Now let's go through some of the issues that actual news sources are talking about that could be a real issue. And the first one is lost jobs and the resulting chaos of that. Now I always look at any technological innovation being blamed as this is going to be the end of jobs as a little bit of a Luddite approach. I mean, you could have said it about cars, replacing people who, made horseshoes or drove, horse and buggies or whatever else. But this does seem a little bit different. The Independent in the UK says it could be an unprecedented scale. And so while many of the people who are displaced from jobs could be replaced in a new AI world or doing something else, I do think from the Nomad Capitalist perspective, that you will see politicians using people being put out of jobs as ways to introduce new things. It could be universal basic income fueled by huge tax increases on people who are wealthy or businesses that are using AI or who knows what criteria they come up with. It could be used to divide the population further, as it is in most Western countries now, where there are people who have wealth. If you have $500 to your name, you have more in cash than about 2/3 of Americans or Britons or many other people in the West. And so there's a definite haves versus have-nots. If you've saved, if you invested, if you started a business, if you've done the right thing, you will be perhaps blamed, just as you have been for a number of other things recently. And hey, if you're the employer laying people off, who knows what new restrictions could be put in place? Governments have become more and more emboldened. You may also see riots by people who don't get new jobs or who aren't sure what's going to happen. I mean, look at what's happened as factories have been moved from places like the United States down to Mexico, down to other parts of the world. Look at how people have reacted sometimes. I get it. It's frustrating to have your job shipped overseas. And yet I think what people in the Western world really don't get is we have the internet. We have now AI. We have a global economy. And the same way that you get to work from home, the same way that you get the access to all this information around the world, the same way you get access to so many good things means that so do people in other parts of the world. And I've been telling you for a while now that as people like me hire people in other parts of the world because it's just better in many ways, what happens when AI starts to take over? It's going to turbocharge that because you're going to see, as the news says, an unprecedented scale of people having to change their job, having to figure out something new. And I think politicians will use that to their advantage to say, hey, we're going to take care of these folks, and we're going to do so at the expense, because we're bankrupt, our countries are bankrupt. We're going to do so by dramatically raising taxes. We may impose new restrictions on employers, and we may even make it harder to leave. You think the easier it becomes to leave your country, the government may actually impose restrictions. And we've seen from the UK to Canada and others, Australia, saying, hey, you can't leave or you can't come back. So that could be an issue. One news source says mass unemployment results in social unrest, similar to the way laid-off factory workers trashed the machines that replaced them. With so many jobs at risk and the potential for huge wealth inequality, some fear it could ultimately result in societal collapse. The collapse part sounds a little bit strong, but it definitely could hit you with big restrictions on your business and in your company. Here's the second thing that AI could do, is actually make better investment decisions. And they're already talking about this. You see a lot of people who are younger relying on things like robo-advisors. AI takes it to the next level. But let me ask you this. What if we found out that investing in Western economies weren't actually the best deals? What if people were investing in Western countries somewhat out of emotion? Now, no doubt, the U.S. stock market has outperformed some other stock markets around the world. and yet it hasn't outperformed others. And I think that if you look at what we've been talking about with this kind of, not in a conspiratorial way, but just a new world order of countries increasing in stature, countries that are developing, countries that are growing much faster than the US, there's a case to be made that if you could find those best investments in Brazil or Indonesia or wherever they may be, AI would do that for you. And we'd be confronted with a very tough reality that maybe our countries aren't the best places to invest. Now, you go and you make those investments, and that opens up a whole new world of opportunity for some people. You can invest in the stock market in certain countries and get a residence permit. You can buy real estate in a certain country that you're going to rent on Airbnb, where the government actually wants Airbnb, rather than in places like New York and Berlin, where they're shutting it down effectively. You could find these new deals, get passports, get residence permits, build more options for yourself, which you're going to need given the first part, where potentially people are really coming for you with pitchforks to some extent. But what does that mean for your country? Doesn't that almost exacerbate what we talked about with AI itself creating job loss? What happens when certain investment dollars are driven by AI to other parts of the world where it's like, no, this is better. You don't read in the Wall Street Journal about this stock that's in Thailand, but it's actually gone crazy. And look at this, it's going all the right things, and this country is growing, and this is the place to be. This is what you want to buy. And what if you take money out of a U.S. company, put it in the Thai company? Well, now you're contributing to more money being in foreign currencies, less being in U.S. dollar. We're contributing to what we've been talking about, the decline of the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. I'm not saying the dollar goes away, but every little dollar that moves out and goes somewhere else makes an impact. What if people start moving their money out of things like dollars and euros into other markets? What happens to those companies where now maybe capital is a little harder to come by? Look at what happened in the stock market when interest rates went up. What if it becomes a little bit harder to get capital? What happens to some of those companies when people actually use AI to drive their money where places are better? That's overall great for the investors, but it may not be good for people who have just relied on money because, hey, the U.S. is the only place to go. There's nowhere else to go. When you actually have the entire universe of stocks selected in a totally impartial way, and you realize that maybe your country wasn't the best, you're going to see more societal implications. So you've got economies like the U.S., the European Union, and others, which are more regulated. And I think people could find much better opportunities, but that could have an impact long-term, at least at the margins, on the economies where their capital is leaving. And again, eventually, does that mean that governments don't come out and say, hey, listen, we're not letting you move your money. We are going to make you invest here the same way you've seen in certain pension funds and retirement accounts. Hey, you have to invest here. We control your money. You are going to see more of that, and the rise of nationalism is going to make many people accept that. Hey, your money is stuck here. You can't go where you're treated best. That's why I think it's important to have diversification now, because you never know when you'll need it. And so if you're looking to find more ways to diversify, what we're doing is putting together a 4-day live event in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So you can come and see what a developed country that is a great place to live, in my opinion, looks like. And you can realize, hey, I don't have to live in the US or in Canada or in Australia because this place is pretty cool. So Nomad Capitalist Live this September, it's 4 days of wall-to-wall information about how to protect your money, diversify your wealth, find investments, find banks, find brokerage accounts overseas. I've done this dozens of times myself legally. How to get second residence, how to get second citizenship, how to find opportunities of all kinds around the world. We're bringing together my team, which works with clients from $1 million up to billions of dollars. We help them. We're bringing some of our best research and development to Nomad Capitalist Live. This is like anything else you've ever seen. It's 4 days of wall-to-wall information, wall-to-wall networking. We have some great keynote speakers coming. And if you're trying to figure out, in the age of AI, in the age of CBDCs, in the age of emerging countries increasingly saying we want to de-dollarize, what do I do? You can certainly hire Nomad Capitalists if you've got a problem to solve. If your taxes are too high, we'd be happy to help you. But if you're just trying to figure out the vast universe of ideas, you come to Nomad Capitalist Live. Go to nomadcapitalist.com/live and learn about this event and how you can not only survive, but thrive. That's the goal. You want to be the one who's using things like AI to find the better opportunities. I've been doing it just 15 years without AI, but AI could make that better. Now, let's talk about a third thing, privacy violations. Here's a chilling statistic for you. 30% of Gen Z, I believe in the US, the youngins, believes you should have surveillance cameras in your house. The ostensible, sounds reasonable solution or reason is, hey, it'll stop domestic violence. We'll have better proof. Now, there's probably some people who are getting accused of things like domestic violence who aren't doing it, and maybe it'll help them. But isn't it pretty chilling that 30% of young people think you should literally have camera? It's bad enough they're everywhere you go outside. Now in your own house, someone should be watching you while you sleep, while you eat. So that's the consequence of a young generation, right? What do they say? Every technology that already exists before we're born, we just totally take for granted. Every technology that comes about when we're young is bold and innovative. And everything that comes about when we get older it's going to kill us all. And so there's probably a fine line somewhere in the middle. But if you're just coming of age when AI is coming and you're increasingly politically involved and you're going to go out and set policy in the government, especially in countries that have already shown, the United States, for example, freedom has gone down the tubes. If you look at the freedom of the press index, freedom of speech index over the years, gone down the tubes. Personal freedom is down in the West. I mean, Australians couldn't even go to their own country for close to 2 years. Total violation of like everything they've been talking about, freedom and rights and all that kind of stuff for decades. Well, now the young generation, those young kids say, yeah, listen, we should just totally take away your privacy. How does AI do that? There's going to be a lot of ways that potentially, I mean, who knows what they'll come up with, but privacy violations, I think, could be an issue. So I'm not coming at this as a Luddite who doesn't want improvements, because there's a lot of cool stuff that AI is doing. There's also a lot of really chilling stuff that's going to be interesting to see how we set, rules and ethics around in terms of, being to replicate, people's voice and being able to create videos that look like people say things, and, what are going to be the guardrails on that. And so I do look at AI as a lot of people who don't know much about it are getting involved in it, almost again in a kind of a pets.com 1998 way. I imagine there's some correction and then it comes back and it becomes a very important part of our life. But I come back to the same point I always make, culture. If you have a culture where 30% of people think you should be surveilled in your own home, where politicians think that because you've saved a bit of money or started a business that you are the problem and you were there to be a cow to be milked, all those things you should be concerned about. And so if you're in a country that is looking to be innovative, generally those are smaller countries. If you want us to talk more about the AI innovation countries, leave a comment below and we'll consider doing that. But if you're in innovative countries where they're doing things the right way and they have the right approach, that's going to be better than being somewhere where your privacy is going to be trashed, your taxes are going to be raised, your market is going to be less invested in. So I come back to, you don't have to move right now, but you should have options of places where you and your money can move. Create some tunnels, have a bank account in another country, report it if that's the legal requirement where you live, have a bank account somewhere else, have assets somewhere else. Do not rely in an AI age where now the tax man, by the way, is getting in on AI too. They're using it to surveil people. They're flying drones over people's swimming pools in France. This will be used by the government against you as much as you're using it in your business. And so you want to have legal and ethical second, third, fourth, whatever options. It's what we're talking about at Nomad Capitalist Live coming up this year. It's what we help our clients do. But regardless of all that, you've got to understand that the culture of the country that you're living in is going to play a role in dictating any possible problems that AI creates for people like you.